This is an audio course. Thank you for listening.
You probably have some resolutions or goals you want to achieve this year, but are you really motivated? Motivation makes the difference between dreaming of things and actually accomplishing them, but motivation itself is poorly understood by most psychologists. One of the top thinkers in the field is Ayelet Fishbach, a professor of behavioral science at the University of Chicago and a former president of the Society for the Study of Motivation. Ayelet has a new book called Get It Done, Surprising Lessons from the Science of Motivation, and it has won praise from influential psychologists like Angela Duckworth, Carol Dweck, and our very own Next Big Idea curator, Adam Grant. Here's Ayelet to share 5 big ideas from the book.
Hello, I'm Ayelet, a professor of psychology and a motivation scientist. I also like to think of myself as someone who gets things done. At the beginning of the pandemic, when many people were mastering their baking skills, I sat down to write a book on what motivation science taught me about how to get things done. I'm not good at baking. You motivate yourself by changing your circumstances. If you ever put a psychologist, a sociologist, and an economist in one room, that basic principle, changing behavior by modifying the situation, might be the one truth they'll agree on. And you should expect heated arguments on just about everything else. Motivation science explores how your situation and the way you think about it influence what you do. Here I'm going to share with you just 5 strategies that demonstrate this idea. Strategy 1. Set a goal, not a means to a goal. When dining out, you might not hesitate to order a $12 cocktail at a restaurant, but you'd think twice and even drive around the block a few times before paying the same amount for valet parking. You don't like to pay for parking because parking is, by definition, a means. It gets you into the restaurant and in front of the dinner plate you'd set your sights on. Similarly, shipping and gift wrapping fees are a means to the goal of getting your friend the perfect birthday present, and indeed, we dislike paying these fees. Many of us would rather pay a little extra for the gift and earn free delivery than pay a shipping fee. In general, we want to invest our resources in the goal, not in the means. This aversion to investing in means can have surprising effects. An experiment we conducted with our MBA students showed us that people are willing to spend more overall to avoid spending anything on a means. In our experiment, we auctioned an autographed book by a prominent economist. The average bid for the book was $23. We next auctioned a tote bag which contained the same autographed book to another similarly enthusiastic group of students. While these students were technically bidding on a bag, their deal was superior given that the highest bidder would win both a bag and a book. To our surprise, the average bidder was willing to pay only $12, significantly less than what bidders were willing to pay for the book alone. In economics terms, the value of the tote bag was negative, meaning that throwing it in decreased the value of the deal. The reason for this surprising result? It didn't feel right to pay that much for a bag whose only function was to carry a free book. People don't like to invest in means. When you are setting goals, try to define the goal in terms of benefits rather than costs. It's better to set your goal as finding a job rather than applying for a job. Achieving a goal is exciting. Completing a means is a chore. Strategy 2. Find a fun path. When we find a path to a goal that is fun or interesting, we are excited about doing it and we have a better chance at success. The activity feels like an end in itself. In motivation science, we refer to this activity as intrinsically motivating. Intrinsic motivation is the best predictor of engagement in just about everything. When people are intrinsically motivated, they are more likely to follow through on work tasks, healthy eating, exercising, and their New Year's resolutions. But people often underestimate how important it is to find a fun path to a goal. In one study, we asked people to choose between listening to the song Hey Jude by the Beatles and listening to a loud alarm for 1 minute. Seems like an obvious choice, right? But most of the people in our study chose the loud alarm because it paid more. They wanted to maximize their earnings in the experiment. Yet, those who listened to this terrible noise were also more likely to regret their decision than those who chose to listen to the lower paying song. While our research participants predicted that they would care more about money than sound, they ultimately cared more about sound than money. Finding the fun path takes several forms. You might watch TV while exercising or find an exercising activity that is most fun. Maybe instead of hopping on an exercise bike, you could get your workout by playing frisbee with some friends. Or you could pay attention to the fun that exists in exercising. Strategy 3. Broad decision frame. Detecting the temptations that lead you astray can be tricky because most temptations are not too damaging if you indulge in moderation. The problem is usually in accumulation. You're more likely to detect temptation when you make decisions that affect multiple occasions. We call this using a broad decision frame. If you decide in advance what to eat for lunch every day this month, you'll probably choose healthier food than if you decide on each lunch just around noon each day. 30 lunch decisions are more consequential than one, as healthy choices add up, so you'll see the self-control problem. Most of us spend too much money on unusual or infrequent items such as hotels or birthday presents. The reason? We tend to consider these purchases one at a time. One study encouraged people to think of these expenses together as part of a broad category of exceptional expenses. As a result, they were less likely to overspend. In another study, we asked employees how likely they'd be to engage in various questionable work-related behaviors like calling in sick to take a day off or taking office supplies for personal use. People who thought about taking an unnecessary sick day just one time reported greater intention to actually fake sick. Deciding to go against your moral compass is easier when you consider just a single time. Strategy 4. Make your decision in advance. If I offered to give you $120 in 6 months or $1 now, which would you choose? What if I offered $120 in a year and a half or $100 in a year? Many people would choose $100 in the first scenario, but $120 in the second. Either way, I'm asking you to wait 6 months for extra $20. So why are people willing to wait when they already have to wait at least a year for their money? The reason is that when the options are close, we tend to choose the smaller, sooner reward. But when there's distance to either option, we choose the larger, later reward. This example demonstrates one strategy to increase patience. Make the decision to wait in advance. According to the advanced decision technique, you will be more patient if you decide between the smaller sooner and the larger later options ahead of time when they are both scheduled in the far future. It's easier to wait an extra month for a better product or a better price when the waiting takes place next year rather than now. Our perception of time is nonlinear. The difference between now and next month seems larger in our mind than the difference between 1 month from now and 1 year plus 1 month. Even pigeons benefit from having to make advanced decisions. In one study, pigeons chose to peck on a key that produced a smaller amount of grain immediately over a key that produced more grain after a short delay. But when a constant time delay of 10 seconds was introduced before both options, the pigeons switched to the key that produced more grain later. They therefore switched their answer to the question, "Are you willing to wait an additional 4 seconds for more grain?" When the decision was made way in advance, they were patient. When it was made just before the immediate reward became available, they were impatient. We can use this principle to increase patience. All we need to do is introduce more time before the smaller sooner option becomes available. Strategy 5. Do it with others. Marie and Pierre Curie discovered 2 of the elements on our periodic table, polonium and radium. In 1903, the couple jointly won the Nobel Prize in Physics. It was Pierre who insisted that Marie also be named. Marie won a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, on her own 8 years later. Marie and Pierre Curie were able to make such incredible discoveries in part because they did it together. Their story tells us how 2 people can support each other's motivation. We connect to those who hold similar goals. When Marie and Pierre first met, they immediately bonded over their scientific interests. And when you first met your partner, you may have discovered that you both like hiking and cooking. We also help each other's goals, as Pierre supported Marie and insisted she be named on their Nobel Prize. Helping each other is fundamental to social connection. When you sit at a table each night and ask your partner about their day, brainstorming a polite way for them to talk to their coworker about picking up the slack, you are instrumental to their career goals. We also pursue shared goals that require joint effort, glue us together. Marie and Pierre worked tirelessly together, day in and day out, as they attempted to isolate polonium and radium. You and your partner may be saving for a house, taking care of a pet, or planning a trip. No matter the goal, you need each other to succeed. Finally, we hold goals for other people and they hold goals for us. Marie and Pierre Curie, like most parents, wanted their 2 daughters to do well in school. We assume they care mostly about science, which could have prepared their oldest, Irene, to win her own Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1935. Following in her parents' footsteps, she won with her husband, with whom she was working.